8 o'clock at night was an odd time for an interview. The fact that the office was still buzzing with life at that time was another oddity that struck Abigail right off the bat. Then again, nothing about this job had ever been normal. Cold and pristine were what she thought when someone said pharmaceutical company. The reception area Abigail was sitting in were none of those things. The dark purple walls with black accents and luscious leather chairs that were heaven to her backside was like no other office she had ever seen. If the sign behind the reception desk hadn't said Midnight Pharmaceutical, she would have thought she was sitting in a club lounge. Even the workers that walked by didn't look like pharmaceutical employees. Where were the lab coats and geeky scientists? So far, Abigail had seen several men in expensive suits and women in the latest of businesswoman chic. She brushed her brunette hair over her shoulder and grimaced at her own, mostly wrinkled black skirt and plain white blouse. Buying a new wardrobe would be one of the first things she would do when she got hold of a paycheck. The need to have a change of clothes now prickled at her senses. With a flick of her wrist and a few words, she could have all the new clothing she could ever want. The need for it was so intense that a purple glow appeared on her fingertips. "Stop it," she whispered harshly to herself, causing the woman behind the reception desk to look up at her curiously. She gave her a weak, apologetic smile. "Sorry." Abigail groaned inwardly at her lack of control. Needing a new wardrobe? Really? She was that desperate for a magical fix that she couldn't handle waiting to get what she wanted? No wonder her mother made her leave the coven. She shook her head in irritation. The New Orleans coven was one of the most prestigious covens in the United States. Her mother, Bianca, was the head priestess, revered and feared by all other witches, and she had high hopes Abigail would follow in her footsteps. Unfortunately, the likelihood of that happening wasn't very high. Unlike her mother and other sisters of her ex-coven, Abigail lacked one important attribute: patience. While the rest of the coven was happy to sit around and commune with the spirits to better themselves, Abigail wanted action. She wanted danger and excitement. It was that very need that got her where she was today. Kicked out and cautioned to limit her use of magic before it overtook her altogether. Abigail had never been good at following directions, but she had tried her best to follow her mother's advice. She didn't use magic for everyday tasks like drying her hair or making dinner. She had even moved out of Algiers Point into a studio flat on the other side of the river, just to stay away from the temptation. It would have been wiser to move to a different city altogether, one that didn't reek with old magic. But Abigail wasn't strong enough for that. She needed to be near her family more than she needed her magic or anything else. So here she was, sitting in the reception area of Midnight Pharmaceutical, waiting for the head of human resources to interview her for a secretary position. What was more normal than that? Of course, Abigail had no tradable skills besides potions and spells. She had planned all her life to be a priestess, not to be an ordinary member of society. She had found that getting a job in a world that didn't accept references from witches and other supernaturals was harder than not having job experience at all. Eventually, she had to give in and use magic to get someone to finally interview her.